Hello, welcome back to NOTCAST, episode 278. Today I'm going to be talking about Depeche Mode, but not about Depeche Mode's album that was released last week, because I still have to talk about 2017's Spirit album. So I'm going to be talking about Spirit first, and then I'm going to talk about the other Depeche Mode album, Memento Mori, soon. But the last time I did a NOTCAST about Depeche Mode, they hadn't even announced that album, let alone released it, let alone started touring it. But of course, the big news is, oh my God, Mark's had a shave. What's happened? Well, I looked at my chin one day and I realised that having a beard is not really very good if you want to work out whether you've got fatter or thinner in your face, because obviously it's all hidden. So I decided to have a shave, and here I am. And I don't think I like it, and I think I'm going to grow a beard back, but at least I've tried it and I can work out whether I do or don't like it. And it's worth doing every once in a while, because otherwise, if you just carry on repeating what you've done previously, it's not a fresh decision, is it? You know, in the same way that, well, you kind of do things because you've always done them, and then you kind of go, why am I doing this? I don't like it. Whereas, you know, most days I have a point where I kind of touch base with everything that's in my life, and I kind of go, is this what I still want to be? Do I still want to be a guy talking about his record collection to a tiny audience on YouTube for the rest of his life? Yes. Do I still want to be the dude who's always in this room, surrounded by all his CDs? Yes. Do I still want to be me? Yeah, most days. Maybe not first thing in the morning, but most days. And those are the kind of questions where if you don't examine your life and you don't look at it frequently, you can very easily find yourself stuck in a rut. And Depeche Mode's 14th studio album, released on, I think, the 21st of March, 2017, called, or more correctly, entitled Spirit, here it is, the vinyl edition, is one of those albums that has an examined life going on in it. It's an album that takes a step back and looks at the world and itself as individuals and its relationship to the other things that are going on, and asks the questions, is this who I am? Is this what I believe? Is this how I want to live my life? I don't know. There's a lot of other stuff, of course, that comes before we get to Spirit. So this is going to be the bit that inevitably will turn up as a thumbnail. In fact, I'm going to try for it not to turn up as a thumbnail. Just, you know, whoa, shake it up a little bit. But see how it goes. So we have Martin Gore's solo releases, the Spirit album itself, lots of singles, well, 3 singles, and Dave Gahan solo albums, and other things to go through whilst we talk through all of this. And we go through chronologically, like we do all of them, in a vague sense of order. So there we are. The first thing which I think I will talk about is 2015, the 4th solo album released by Martin Gore, MG, available on vinyl and CD, and with a remix 12-inch as well. And I'm going to go and address these in the order in which they came out. Firstly, MG by Martin Gore. I really, really enjoy this record. I really enjoy his solo releases. I enjoy them for what they are and not what they aren't, if that makes sense. And what they are is a bunch of instrumental wibbling. If I didn't know or didn't think he was in Depeche Mode, I'd probably listen to it and go, yeah, it's quite good. But really, what it is you can listen to this and you can really, really hear that it's the guy from Depeche Mode who's doing some instrumental stuff, kind of moonlighting in his spare time. And it's kind of telling that that Fletch never did a solo album, because as far as I can tell, he didn't play on any other records and wasn't really a contributor in a musical sense for quite some time. Whereas you can listen to this and you can really hear the Depeche-ness of it. So if you want to go, well, I want a kind of weird, slightly quirky album made out of Depeche Mode style instrumentals, this is exactly your type of thing. Really, what I'd say is, if you haven't heard it, kind of load it up on the Spotifys and the Intertubes and give it a listen. You might really, really enjoy it, actually. I really do. This is a lovely record for me to sit out in the summer with a nice cold drink and a book as the sun goes down after a day at work. It's that kind of record, just really works very, very well for me. There is a vinyl version of the LP, which came on 2 albums. Also comes, by the way, with a card sleeve CD. There is a standard retail CD version, of MG that features some very, very minimal artwork there. That features, by the way, the track titles all kind of embossed into the sleeve, and one of these as well. You don't see many of these days, these lovely little paper cloth sleeve thingies. That's a technical term there. There was also a single, although single I think is grossly overstating it, which featured remixes of Europa Hymn, Brink, Pinking, and 2 new tracks, Dinarda and Gifting. This is effectively the deluxe version of the album, but released as a single in its own right. Not that it would ever be a hit or anything like that, but if you're sat there kind of going, are there any extra tracks from MG's 2015 album? Yes, there are. They're on this. If you need to buy them, I think you can still pick them up for about 15 quid. Didn't get a CD release, otherwise I'd have bought the CD release. But also is available, as is completely unsurprisingly, on every streaming option available to man, woman, child and beast. So the MG EP, yeah, I really like it, by the way. And you listen to the B-sides on here, Dinarda and I think Sifting, Drift, Gifting, and you kind of go, well, it doesn't, it just sounds like they could have been on the album. There was another solo release in 2015. I am not so pleasant about this one. This is Dave Gahan's and Soul Savers album, Angels and Ghosts, which was released on the 23rd of October 2015. It peaked at number 27 in the UK pop charts. The MG album, this one peaked at number 50. This one is much, much better than that one. As I kind of identified in previous episodes, when I talk about Soul Savers, I'm not a huge fan of Soul Savers. I think instrumentally they're quite predictable, quite unexceptional, completely cromulent, very competent, but there's no personality in the music. It's constructed, it's delivered, but it's not, you don't listen to it and go, a human made that. It could have come from, I think it's the Versificator, which is the machine that writes pop music in Orwell's 1984. It could have been that. And whilst this has 9 tracks on it, and it was very, very clearly inspired by the fact that Soul Savers supported Depeche in Berlin in 2009. And it features a very good bass player called Martin Lenoble, by the way, who played in Dave Gahan's solo band. I think he played in one of the configurations of Jane's Addiction and Porno for Pyros as well. That band, maybe I should talk about Jane's Addiction and Porno for Pyros, because I absolutely love those bands. But it's just not very good. It's not very exciting. It sounds like Depeche Mode B-sides, and not particularly good ones at that. Sorry, Dave. Not saying that you can't write good songs, because you've written some amazing ones. But Soul Savers, not for me. No, I'm afraid not. All the quirky, weird stuff that Depeche do isn't in this. It's a little different. 2017, 2016 was quite quiet. Dave did a handful of shows to support this album, playing smaller venues, about 2,000 capacity, and I could have gone, but I decided not to, on the grounds that I was washing my hair that night. That's not actually a joke. If I'd have gone to this, I would have made 44 shows in 45 nights, because I was doing a heck of a lot of touring, seeing other bands at the same time. So instead I chose not to see Dave solo. In fact, I only made 43 shows in 45 nights in October and November 2015. It was bullshit, and I don't know how I was able to afford to do it, or how I was able to make it happen, but I did. I'm glad that I didn't go to the show. Depeche went into the studio to record album number 14, that was later announced and released in March 2017. The album is Spirit, and here it is. And that was preceded by the single Where's the Revolution, which came on a CD single, here it is, and a double vinyl 12-inch. And like a lot of Depeche Mode singles, this one didn't have a B-side, just had loads and loads of remixes on. So the double 12-inch, the preferred format, I think the version which they probably press more of, had 9 tracks on it. All remixes, none of them are particularly good. Depeche Mode's remix game at this point, and has been for a number of years, is pretty crap, to be honest. There are a couple of good ones for the Delta Machine album, but it really is a law of diminishing returns. You know, the days when every remix would be interesting and varied and different are long gone. I cannot recall any single one of the remixes of Where's the Revolution that has stuck with me at all over the past 6 years. So this one, the 12-inch, has the Auto Lux remix, which is also on the CD. The Pearson Sound remix, which isn't on here. The Algiers Click Farm Simeon Mobile Disco, Pearson Sound Beatless, Mobile Disco Dub, Terence Fixmer Spatial Mix, the Patrice Bowmill remix, and the Ewan Pearson Compromat Dub, whatever those are. This one, the CD single, has the Ewan Pearson remix, the Algiers remix, the Terence Fixmer remix. Terence Fixmer, by the way, also a member of this act with Douglas McCarthy from the Knights of Reb, Fixer McCarthy, who did two releases, Between the Devil, and this one here, Into the Night. Both pretty good, actually. You can completely see where they came from, and I think Fixman McCarthy did support Depeche on some shows as well, but maybe not on this particular tour. And Auto Lux remix on a 5-track CD single. The best thing about this release, certainly not the music, is this wonderful picture of the band on the back. They're sporting magnificent false beards. Death to false metal. Hail. And as we all know, false beards are probably almost as good as actual beards. I might actually grow a false beard. Who knows? Maybe I should have worn one today. But that's Where's the Revolution. Where's the Revolution is the second track on the album. Then the second track on the album is I think it's Misplaced is probably the best way to describe it, because I think the sequencing on Spirit could be a heck of a lot better. But let's go and talk about the LP, and let's give Where's the Revolution its appropriate due in the context of the wider album. So released on the 17th of March 2017, the 14th studio record by the Depeche Mode, Spirit. Ooh, something fell out there. Let's see what that is. And that was this isn't exciting. I don't even know that is a advert that came from the Guardian newspaper. Available everywhere, March 17th. And they had the Global Spirit Tour that dropped off at, of all places, London Stadium on the 3rd of June. I was very excited about seeing Depeche Mode in the stadium until I realised that was the night I was going to go and see Mogwai and Slayer in Barcelona, and I probably shouldn't go, so I didn't. So I went to see Depeche Mode 3 times on the tour that plugged this album. Once at a show that is well known, another one at the Stade de France in Nice, and then the last time that I saw Depeche on the tour at the London O2 Arena on the 22nd of November 2017. But let's talk about the album before we get into the tour. It is triple-sided vinyl with a gatefold sleeve. Oh look, there's some guys, and they've got a bike. Hello, Anton. And then there's some other guy. There's some boots, and there's a third. This is only a 3-sided LP, by the way. The 4th side of the album just contains an etching. Come and have a look at my lovely etchings. So that is that's Spirit for you. Perhaps not the. I don't even know actually why there's only 3 sides on this LP, because the CD edition of Spirit, this one here, contains a bonus disc of 5 exclusive remixes by Depeche Mode. So this contains this CD, which they really should have put a couple of tracks on the vinyl, features alternate versions of Cover Me, Scum, Poison Heart, Fail, and So Much Love, which would ideally have fit on here, but they chose not to, instead focusing just on the actual song. So there are no new Depeche Mode B-sides on this album, even though there is a non-album track which was only available officially on the enormously expensive 18 CD Mode box set and the band's YouTube, which was a cover version of David Bowie's Heroes. Quite why that wasn't given a proper release, I'm not quite sure. Well, I suspect I do, and it's all to do with money. But it should have been a B-side of a single. Considering the band played it at about 70 shows. Album is a 12-tracker, so I think the sequencing is a little off. I really do, because one of my favourite song tracks on the album, So Much Love, is buried in track 8, and it should be track 2. And it was, and so track 1 is Going Backwards, and track 2 is Where's the Revolution. In my world, So Much Love would have been track 2. Going Backwards is, I think, a statement track. Spirit is an album where, as I've mentioned right at the start of the episode, it's around reconnecting with the decisions and ideals that you have when you start off and how you go through your life. So every day I write the book. Every day you wake up and you go, is this the day that I'm going to change my life? You know, and as I said, on a daily basis, I reconnect to my decisions, my life, and I kind of go, this is the one that I want. And I don't have commitment bias in that respect. You know, if I've consistently been waking up for a while and thinking something needs to change, I'll make that change. You know, in your body, in your heart, you'll kind of know when things are going to start to change, and there comes a time when you kind of realise, right, okay, so the draw is serious enough. I remember the moment where I made a decision to leave a job. I was walking down a corridor in an office in East London, and it was about 5:55 p.m. and I just walked down the corridor and I went, no, that's it, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it. And that wasn't quite where I wanted it to be or what I wanted to happen, but I just knew that was the end. I made a decision walking between my train station and my house whilst listening to Frank Turner's Recovery in 2013 to change an employment situation where, again, I kind of reconnected to the idea as I woke up and I thought, okay, that's it, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm through. You know, and Spirit is one of those albums where you're looking at who you are, your position in the world, and how that relates to everything else, and asking the questions around who am I, where am I, what do I want to be, where's the revolution, you know. And from a political perspective, this is easily the most political Depeche Mode album that there is. The opening track, Going Backwards, is a statement of intent. It's one of the best Depeche tracks of recent years. The songs on Memento Mori are still a bit too fresh for me to really get my head around them yet. I'm still working in them. I'm still getting used to those songs. I'm still feeling my way through that album and going, what does this album mean to me? Is where I am with Memento Mori. Spirit, I've lived with Spirit for 6 years. I know what it is and I know what it means to me. And Going Backwards is one of the great Depeche Mode tracks. It's one of the best opening tracks of any of their albums, actually. It's a statement track that very clearly kind of says, quite simply, is, you know, we've allowed technology to overtake our relationship to the things that are going on around us. So there's a conversation. Let's go and, you know, think about what Jeff Goldblum said in Jurassic Park. Life finds a way. Or the bit where he sits there and he goes, some days the water goes one way and some days the water goes the other. And it's, you know, completely random. It's chemical chance, as Bill Hicks would have it. And Going Backwards is a song around the difference between being able to do something and the difference between what you could do and what you should do. And should you do the things that you could do, or could you do the things that you should do? And around the morality that comes with that. You know, the idea that as a race, mankind has been able to invent nuclear power and atomic energy and go to the moon and blow up cities with nukes, all those type of things. And then the flip side of that is going, should we be doing that? You know, are we as a species mature enough to deal with that degree of responsibility? There's a theory that aliens haven't come down and landed on the lawn of the White House yet because they look at mankind as a species and go, that species isn't mature enough to deal with the existence of aliens. And you remember what Carl Sagan said is, you know, either possibility is that either we are alone in the universe or we are not. Both are absolutely terrifying. And, you know, from a certain point of view, if there are aliens out there, we as a species are probably so primitive and so unevolved and unadvanced that they're probably still kind of watching us and kind of go, no, not dealing with them. They're not that clever. You know, ugly bags of mostly water. And the idea with the song Going Backwards is that it's about technology versus morality. It's around making sense of the world that we live in here. It forms the spine and the main themes of the album. It kind of comes into view and takes shape, and it kind of formulates it and immediately goes, this is what the album is about, you know. And there's that opening line about, we are not there yet, we have not evolved, we have no respect, we have lost control, we're going backwards, ignoring the realities, and are you counting all the casualties? And not to belabor the political points around here, when this was released early 2017, it was recorded in 2016, which was a year of great cataclysm for Western politics. Donald Trump had been elected. He was not necessarily a popular president, and he was quite divisive, and to be honest, not very clever. And then we had Boris Johnson, who was leading the Brexit thing and the Brexit vote, which to me seems to be a catastrophic act of self-sabotage by Britain, both of which seem to be the death knell of rationalism and move towards unthinking populism in terms of politics. So going backwards is kind of looking at those two major events and going, humans are not that clever, you know? And remember that old cliche is, when you think of an average human being, remember that half of them aren't even as smart as that, is pretty cutting. But that is one of the themes I think that comes through the LP, is around humanity as a whole and its political bent, its political angle. Where are we going as a species? Where are we going as a planet? What are we doing to the planet? What are we doing to each other? You know, are we going to see the world through the eyes of love or through the eyes of hate? Are we going to see the world through the eyes of money, or are we going to see it through the eyes of morality? It's all those type of questions. And then, you know, this line about, you know, we have not evolved, we've lost control, we're going backwards, we're ignoring the realities. We are not there yet. We have lost our soul. The course has been set. We're digging our own hole. We're going backwards, armed with new technology, to a caveman mentality. Wow, it's pretty clear, isn't it? As political as Depeche got with Construction Time Again, Spirit it feels like it's 25 years on from that album, and mankind is still fighting the same battles, grappling the same monsters, dealing with the same issues around power and money and control and ecology and profit and capitalism and everything that goes with it. Love the track, and they're not playing it live on the current tour, because of course they only ever play the opening track from the album on the current tour. But I think Going Backwards is probably my favourite song on the album. One of the very few occasions when I agree with Fletch, actually. But there we have it. And then we have Where's the Revolution, track 2, the single, the big hit single, which is a little bit the wheels on the bus go round and round, because there's a very obvious kind of line about the train is coming, so get on board, the engine's humming, so get on board. And it's said a lot, and it's a very simplistic lyrical approach to what's going on. But at the same point, the lyric kind of very clearly details the political situation in the world without going, Trump's really awful, because, you know, Depeche Mode is more subtle than Roger Waters. But there's this thing about you've been kept down and you've been pushed around, you've been lied to, and you've been fed truths about who's making your decisions, you or your religion, your government, your countries, you patriotic junkies. Where's the revolution? Come on, people, you're letting me down. And you could probably look at that and think of it as probably being the nearest thing to a punk lyric, or a Sex Pistols lyric that Depeche had ever written, actually. Yeah. So, you know, your rights abused, your views refused, they manipulate and threaten with terror as a weapon, they scare you until you're stupefied and wear you down until you're on their side. There is, of course, an accusation of hypocrisy that somebody rich who lives in a mansion, who's been incredibly successful, would be able to kind of take this approach. But I think that, you know, as Larry Mullen said, rich people have feelings too, and they're allowed to have political opinions. And even though a system might benefit you, it doesn't mean you can't see its weaknesses, and it's not hypocrisy to point that out. In fact, if anything, it's when you're freed from Maslow's hierarchy of needs that you're then able to look at what's really going on, because you're not focusing your energies on things like food and shelter and love. You're then starting to think about, well, what is this beyond having enough food and shelter and love to be able to exist? What's going on? And that's a strong message to have. So Where's the Revolution is I think it is very political as a song. In fact, the first 2 songs on the album are some of the most political things that Depeche have ever done. But they're inspired by Syria, they're inspired by Brexit, they're inspired by the child on the empty beach, inspired by Trump, inspired by the political kind of pendulum. And the pendulum swings one way and then it swings the other way and then it swings back. It always does, because that's the nature of politics, is that you think about politics from a certain point of view, and the world goes one way, then it goes the other way. And you can kind of go the bit where probably the world as a whole was probably in its most liberal was probably 10th of September 2001, and then it slowly swung the other way through to, the pretty extreme edge of 2017 and 2020. And then it kind of swings back again, but it takes a while for it to come round. And you think about the middle point there, let's say that's 1997 or 2001, and you then kind of go, right, so 19 years before that, 1982, the world was probably at its most right wing for a while, because you had Reagan and you had Thatcher and you had the miners' strikes and everything that goes with it. And it feels like the pendulum of politics and consensus of public opinion and reality is kind of leaning a little bit back. It's not perfect. We've still got a very authoritarian government in the UK, and the UK has fallen down the corruption index. It's fallen down the perception, and is perceived to be a place that's not populated by competent, clever people, and is quite an authoritarian country at the moment. But I think that the pendulum will swing back towards a kinder way of living, I think it's fair to say. And with Where's the Revolution, it's not telling us how to think, but it's articulating how we feel. And the strange thing is, I think there was some guy whose name I can't remember, who said that Depeche Mode were the official band of the alt-right, to which Dave Gahan called them see you next Tuesday, which was pretty unambiguous. And made it pretty clear that actually, if you think Depeche Mode are not, are a very right-wing band, they are not. They just, don't scream it from the rooftops in the way that Billy Bragg does, I think, or Rage Against the Machine. There's a subtlety in that. Track 3, The Worst Crime. Sorry, I got distracted there. Is a song about climate change. It's a song about mankind's self-destruction. It's a song around the way in which the species of mankind is kind of falling off the track, I think, a little bit. The lyric makes a reference to lynchings and solutions and hanging people with misinformation and misguided leaders and apathetic hesitation and uneducated reasons. And it's very clear that it's that there's this huge sense of disappointment at mankind. Going, really, for all the brains and all the power and all the technology and all the abilities we've gone here, we've done this, which is understandable, I guess, but at least the man, they're trying new things, they're trying new ideas, they're trying to go to new places with the work that they're doing, because they've never been so obviously political. But then, personally, I think that with the disaggregation of news sites, the need for clickbait and so on and so forth, is that the world as a whole has become far more political and far more sensationalised than perhaps it needs to be. Every day, the news cycle seems to be, here's a thing that you need to be outraged about. And actually, I quite like the days when there was no news. That cliche about may we live in interesting times. I'd be quite happy to live in quite boring times, actually, because the past 6 years in the world platform have been really not boring. And I long for the sweet embrace of boredom and competence, which certainly in America we seem to have a little bit more of that. We seem to have some people that are competent. I don't always have to agree with them, but I don't mind necessarily having people that are prime ministers or presidents if I don't agree with them, as long as they're competent at what they're doing. And in the US, it seems that the president is more competent than the previous one, who I think he's going to get indicted on Tuesday, is according to the rumour. Although he's going to be indicated if you follow his Truth Social posts. Track 4 is Scum. And Scum, by the way, appears in an alt version on the CD deluxe edition of the album, which has a frenetic mix on there. And Scum is, I think, it's angry, it's aimed at someone, but it's not specific around who it's aimed at. And it's again about the gap between expectation and reality, between possibility and probability, between what you could do and what you should do. And it was never played live. I think it was played on the 4th of March in a rehearsal, but it wasn't played at any other point on the show. But it's just very, very clearly about, I mean, looking at it and the lyrics that are in there, they're very clearly aimed at people that are totally self-serving, that pretend to be one thing but aren't one thing because they want to be something else instead. It's quite angry, really. And then track 5 is You Move, which is, I think, about the concept of temptation, but also resisting temptation, which is, I think, a very interesting lyric for somebody of about this age to write. Is around, there's part of it is, I like the way you move, I like the way you move for me tonight, and then imagination is all it takes. There's that idea of, even at quite an advanced age, of thinking of still having a sexual component to your life, or maybe seeing somebody walk down a corridor or something and looking at them and kind of going, oh, okay, I didn't realize I could think that or feel that, or whatever it is. But it's not a lyric which is, how do I describe it? It's not a lyric which is obvious. It's not a lyric which is like in your room. In Your Room is very sultry music. You Move is absolutely not. But by the way, You Move is based upon an instrumental version of one of the tracks, which was originally recorded for the Martin Gore LP CD. So an early version of Europa Hymn became You Move, apparently, which is interesting, which just further underlines the point that I think that the MG record is actually just largely disguised Depeche Mode instrumentals that never became Depeche Mode songs. And we have the last single released from the album, track 6 on the album, is Cover Me. And I love this song. Cover Me is one of my very, very favourite Depeche Mode songs. And it was played at, I think, every show of the tour. Here's the 12-inch of Cover Me. And there's a CD single as well, which has too many songs to qualify for chart appearances. So there are 8 songs on the CD single. And I think there's 8 songs on the double 12-inch as well. And so this has remixes by, let me just quickly check, Ellen, Alien, I Hate Models, Cold Lights, Nicole Mudaber, Errol Aklan, Texas Gentleman, Warpaint, and Josh T. Pearson, alongside a remix of So Much Love by Callie. Or on this one has, again, a similar set of remixes on a double 12-inch. This is I think one of my very, very favourite Depeche tracks, actually. It's written by Dave Gahan and Peter Gordino and Christian Eigner, so the last two being in the Depeche Mode live band and have been since 1998. And it is, I think, from a certain point, it was inspired by the Northern Lights. And for those of you who don't know, the Northern Lights are a thing that happen in Iceland and certain northern parts of the world where you can get to see a weird atmospheric kind of view. And seeing that and seeing how fragile life is on Earth and how fragile our existence on this Earth is. Remember, if the overall temperature of Earth was a little bit... If the overall temperature on Earth was a little bit cooler or a little bit hotter, we wouldn't have formed into existence. We would, like that scene in Star Trek where you can see the first plop of humanity, and Q kind of just made it so that it didn't happen and humanity didn't happen. You can look at that kind of stuff and you go, well, if it's a couple of degrees cooler or a couple of degrees warmer, mankind would never have happened. Mankind exists in a very fragile, very thin band of sustainable ecological conditions. And the song turns on a penny. So halfway through Cover Me, it turns into something completely different. It's this huge kind of instrumental epic ending, which is perhaps more fully explored on the rather fabulous alt outmix on the extended version of the Spirit album. And Cover Me has this, is designed to sound like, in Space Oddity, when half of the song is set in one place and then it goes into space for the second part of the song. Cover Me does almost exactly the same thing. So the second half of Cover Me is kind of like leaving the Earth and looking at the Earth from the outside, which is why the video and the imagery is, a man in a spaceship or Dave Gahan wearing a spacesuit, elevating beyond San Francisco and seeing the world from the outside. It also has a line that has an incredible personal meaning to me. Cover Me. And that line, and I'm going to make sure I don't misquote it here, is the line where he goes, I dreamt of us in another life, one we've never reached. And that line, sometimes you just hear a line in a song and it's all of a sudden it's like, yes, exactly. That was how I felt at a certain point in my life, is that there was something that happened and the door opened and I could see into a different universe, but I couldn't go through that door. I couldn't live the life that existed the other side of that. And so the lyric where he sings, I dreamt of us in another life, one we've never reached, is so meaningful to me. Because sometimes, irrespective of all other things, any relationship does not exist in isolation of the rest of the universe around it. It exists as part of the universe around it. And so therefore the factors which may be completely outside of that would prevent that relationship from reaching its full potential, or may prevent you from being into a certain geographical place or a certain financial place that would allow that to happen. And sometimes the world takes something that is real and tangible and it tears it apart, and it's not personal, it's just part of, you know, the ongoing kind of rolling of reality that can't be overcome, you know. And emotions are really difficult things, especially when you're British and you're not meant to have any whatsoever. And so it's the question is, well, what if we turn left instead of going right? What if we went this way instead of that way? How would your life work out? What would it be? You know, what if I'd made the decision to keep on walking as opposed to sit down at a table? What if I'd made what if that person had made the decision to go to a different nightclub on that particular night in December 1996? Where would my life have gone? What would have happened? You know, and what if that person hadn't worn reindeer antlers at a Christmas party, for example? These are the type of things where you kind of sit there and go, wow, and something as small as that made a decision that completely changed, you know, where you wake up on a day-to-day basis, who you love, which children get born, all those type of things. And that's massive world of possibility that exists inside those two particular lines in Cover Me, which is why it's one of my favourite Depeche songs. And I am right in thinking that, because it's bloody brilliant. Hence when I said earlier on, Dave Gahan's written some amazing songs. Cover Me is one of them, Should Be Higher is one of them. He's an underrated writer, actually, and he's got some really good songs, and some songs that don't do anything for me, but that is the way it is. Track 7 on the album is Eternal, and it's a love song to a daughter, written about the idea of, well, what is the world that you're going to inherit? What is the world that you're going to grow into? What is the world that you're going to live in as you become older? And although it's written from a certain point of view, to use a terrible phrase from Star Wars, it could be seen about, you know, someone feeling quite protective about a loved one, a partner. It's a love song to a child, to go, I will do my best to bring you up well, to bring you into this world and to show you the world that there is, and to try and protect you from it, but I will fail, because that is the nature of the beast, that is the nature of how things go. And then we have track 8, which is Poison Heart, which again is written with Christian Eigner and Peter Gordino from the live band. And it is the lyrics to Poison Heart are an internal dialogue, actually. So the way of somebody talking to themselves around, you know, the insecurities that exist inside somebody's mind, and going, you've never been a friend to me. You know, all you do is bring to me anxiety and worry and despair and all these other things that I don't enjoy. So there we go. The last song written for the LP, by the way, is track 9, So Much Love, which also appears, by the way, on the B-side of Cover Me, in a remix form. There's also a remix of So Much Love, the Machine Mix, which is on the second CD of Spirit. I should get into that, really. And So Much Love was the last song that was written for the album. It is, I think, a great song live, and it should have been on the live releases from the period. I think it's a just works really, really well. Now, sometimes, especially as you get older, the fast songs are the ones which don't actually, when you strip them down and you take all the parts out, the fast songs are the ones that don't actually have that much at the heart of it, and the speed and the passion and the the frenetic element of it that's being dispatched is used to cover the fact that actually, if you stop still long enough to see what there is, you'll realise there's nothing at the heart of the song. So Much Love is not that song. It's a great late period Depeche song, which is my nice way of saying there's at least 3, 4, possibly 5 really great Depeche Mode songs on Spirit, which is by the time you get to your 14th album and your 38th year in existence, is possibly not what you would expect from such a band. We have track 10, which is No More, which is based upon no, Poor Man, actually, which is, I think it's an okay song. It's not, doesn't leap out at me in any particular way. And then we have track 11, which is No More, This Is the Last Time, which Depeche, that's a theme which Depeche returned to a number of times throughout the course of their career, is endings and finality, and all endings should be final, those type of things, and the nature of change. And then we have Fail, the last song on the album, the last song from the period, and there is a remix of Fail on the album, on the CD version. There's a cinematic cut version on there, and it has a lyric about our spirit is gone, and I think it's got an F word. Yep, it's got the rudest words in Depeche Mode's entire discography, Fail, because the last line of the first verse is, "Oh, we're fucked," and that's unambiguous. It's an idea that the world is doomed on the back of Trump and Brexit and Syria and war and Putin and everything that goes in it. But it wasn't played live. It was played live once in rehearsal on the 20th of February 2017, but it was never played on stage to an audience. So, and this is where I think perhaps band set lists are perhaps a little too staid. Depeche set lists are often skewed towards a large number of songs which are older. They're playing to their strengths in that respect. They're playing a lot of older songs because that's what they do. But what they're not doing is playing the newer songs, and so the newer songs never get the chance to be live classics. I think this is something which U2 have a kind of an issue with as well, is that they don't play a lot of the new material live, or as much of the new material live as I'd like them to, and so the material never takes grasp as a concert staple, which is a real shame, actually, because some of the new stuff is really very good. Now, when I saw the first show that I saw of this particular tour was the legendary show at the Barrellands, and this took place on the 26th of March 2017, a Sunday night. So we were very, very lucky to get tickets. So the capacity of Barrellands is about 2,000. Barrellands is generally regarded as one of the best venues in the world, and rightly so. It is an incredible room. I've never seen anything less than a mind-blowingly good gig there. And it was the smallest Depeche show to a paying audience since the Newport Centre in 1988. So the smallest Depeche show in 29 years. Actually, and I think the last time they played Barrellands was 1984. So none of the songs that they played when they played Barrellands for the last time were the songs that they played Barrellands the previous time. And what you could see in that was that the audience was different. So I've seen a lot of Depeche gigs. I've seen huge ones in stadiums. I've seen small ones at the Barrellands. And the ones in the stadiums are, there's the people that go on a Thursday night to go and see Depeche Mode because they quite enjoy the silence and personal Jesus. And then the show at the Barrellands wasn't those people. It was the people that were fervent. These were the people that loved Depeche Mode more than they loved food and their cat. And it was a really passionate crowd. There were guys that were crying, and I might have been one of them, certainly. And, there were more Depeche Mode tattoos than you would see at a Depeche Mode tattoo convention. And it was just a really powerful experience, actually, because the mood in the room was celebratory, and it was 3 years after the most recent show of the tour, and the band were back, and people were seeing them, and they were playing their smallest venue in absolutely ages. 2/3 of the set list was 20 years old or less, so all later period stuff. So for example, the setlist that they had here was Going Backwards, So Much Love, Corrupt, A Pain That I'm Used To, World in My Eyes, Cover Me, Home, Where's the Revolution, Barrel of a Gun, Walking in My Shoes, Personal Jesus, and Enjoy the Silence. So 4 of the 12 songs were recorded by the band's so-called classic period with Alan in the band, these being World in My Eyes, Walking in My Shoes, Personal Jesus, and Enjoy the Silence. So no sign of anything earlier than Violator, not even Never Let Me Down Again, actually. And that didn't detract from the gig in any way, shape or form. It felt really good, actually, to see Depeche and to see them playing a very forward-looking set of mostly newer, later material, and having a degree of commitment to the material, which when you get to the end of the tour and the band are only playing 3 songs from the latest album and 21 songs from the first 8 years of their existence, is quite a depressing place to be, actually, because you end up kind of going, well, what's the point? You're just a museum touring to how good you once were. Bands should play new stuff live. When bands play new stuff live, the new stuff becomes classic stuff. That's how it works. And there's an element of you have to seize the day here. You can't just live in the past. And much as I love, the old songs, if a band that only played, we're going to play songs from a 40-year-old album in full, I've seen the Stooges do that. That was brilliant. But that was because the Stooges never toured that album. If it was like, well, we'll play that every 10 years because we need the money, that's not great. That's kind of boring. And I'm not interested in that. Music speaks to us now. And there are 2 types of music fan. I think there's the people that listen to music that the band are doing currently and kind of go, this is really good. This is talking to me about who I am now and what I am now. And there's the people that just want to be reminded of what life was like when they were 18 before they had to worry about bills and pension plans and rent. And I'm always in the former. Music was the map for me when I was lost, and music was the thing that enabled me to be able to understand my relationship to the rest of the world around me. Because before I found music, I didn't really, I saw all these things around me, things like, buses and houses and schools and people, and I couldn't work out. It didn't make sense to me. And music gave me that map when I was lost in the world. And that's what I look for in every song that I ever hear. And every bit of new stuff is I want to be told something new and illuminating about what it is to be here and to be now and to be experiencing life in this context, right this very second, which doesn't always happen, by the way. Now, I have mentioned also on here that the Back to the Barrellands is this is a yellow vinyl, double bootleg, unofficial release. Yeah, God, everything's coloured vinyl these days. Should point out, by the way, black is a colour, just in case any of you are wondering. But it was also released as a unofficial CD and DVD. It was broadcast on BBC Radio 6 and later on BBC 4 TV programme, an hour-long pro-shot version of the whole show, which as soon as I was able to get a CD, DVD copy of it, I bought it instantly. It's, in my opinion, a really great Depeche gig. This, and I'm very intimate, and I'm very glad that it exists, because obviously the further away you get from something, the more memory becomes a little bit hazy. I'm able to relive one of the best Depeche Mode shows I ever saw anytime I put this DVD into the machine, or for that matter, anytime I fire it up on YouTube, which is, quite often, truth be told. And then the band released the second single from the album. Here it is. Going Backwards, which has 5 remixes of Going Backwards on your 12-inch. Alongside side D has a remix of You Move by Latroit and Soul Savers, which is unamazing, I think it's fair to say. It's unamazing indeed, although the remix of You Move is not on the CD single. And the band went on tour, and I saw them 2 more times on this tour. I saw them at Nice's Stade de France on the 12th of May 2017. And it was quite strange, because then at that point I realised that Depeche Mode had been the band that I've been seeing the most during the course of my life. I first saw them in November 1990 on the Violation tour, and I felt acutely at the time the exclusion of youth when I was watching Depeche Mode in Nice, and I was kind of thinking about, when I first saw Depeche as a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old, and I just kind of thought, one day, if I'm really, really lucky, I'll get to go and see them in London, or I'll get to go and see them abroad. And I've been able to do that a number of times. But seeing them in Nice, in France, which is very near to Monaco, and I was just kind of thinking, this is the what I would have wanted my life to have been when I was younger. And it's really important to remember who that person was when you were younger, and to take that person with you as you go into the future. Because what could be worse than suddenly waking up one day and realizing you've betrayed all your childhood dreams and you become a wanker that you can't stand? Now, part of your childhood dreams was, golden hovercrafts and laser sharks and all that stuff that goes with it. But another part of it was, I will see the bands, and I will go to places in Europe and across the world to see the bands that I love play the songs that saved my life. And I had this moment where I was stood in the stadium in Stade de France. I think it's Stade de France, it could be somewhere else, actually, in Nice. I should know, I spent a whole day there. Charles de something Stadium, actually, so forget what I just said, because Stade de France is Paris. And I was just stood there and I was going, this is what I dreamed of as a child, is being able to go here and to see this happen with my own eyes. And I'm here now living my childhood ambitions. It's incredible kind of experience to have, because I always felt when I was younger, I felt acutely the exclusion of youth. The idea that I was outside, I was not invited, I was not participating, I was observing a world and I wasn't part of it. And then as an adult, I became part of it, and I was able to shape and form and to influence that. And it was really weird going to Nice and Monaco as well, because I played the video games that were set around Monaco. There's a game called GTI Club, which I used to play in the Pot and Beer pub in Birmingham, which was set in a version of Monaco. There's a version, I think, of Ridge Racer that has Monaco as one of the tracks. So when I was walking around Monaco, and I was kind of going, I remember this corner. I have to take my foot off the accelerator and glide into the corner to be able to make it happen. It was so strange to be walking into somewhere that I'd only ever seen as pixels 20, 30 years before, and there was the idea of that moment of going, I was inside something that I never thought I'd get to experience. And I didn't realise when I was playing GTI Club or Ridge Racer that it was set in Monaco. As far as I was concerned, it's just a random generic town, and then all of a sudden you go there and you go, that was in Iron Man 2. That bit was in GTO Club, that bit was in Ridge Racer, that bit's in Cars 2, where's the Pope-mobile, that type of stuff. It was pretty exciting. And then when they played in Nice, they and then also as is on the live release from the tour, Spirits in the Forest, one of the songs was a cover version of David Bowie's Heroes, and I was watching them to play Heroes, and although it wasn't, I think, quite so obvious to me, I remember that actually Dave Gahan's audition piece to join Depeche Mode was to sing Heroes, and there he is singing Heroes with his band all across the world, paying tribute to this guy that, like David Bowie, who had a massive impact upon almost all of us. Now, the last time that I saw Depeche on this tour was the 22nd of November 2017, 27 years to the day after I first saw them in Birmingham. And I remember very acutely, right in the middle of Useless, that I had this huge sense that I'm seeing Depeche Mode for the last time. I was right and I was wrong. I haven't seen them since, but I will be in a couple of months. I had this sense that this is the end of, I'm not going to see Depeche Mode again. And obviously it was the last time that I saw Fletch live. I just had this sense that was the end, that maybe the band had come to an end now. And I was right, because obviously it's not the same now, and I was wrong at the same point. But on that point and that show, I think only 23% of the set list was from the new album. For example, and some of their songs they've not played since 1988. The last time they played People Are People live, 1988, Pasadena Rose Bowl, Justin Bieber's mum was 12 years old, for example. I was not even 15. I think I was still 14. So to think about a song that I've heard so many times not being played live since I was 14 years old, don't tell anyone, I'm going to be 50 later on this year, is pretty bonkers, really, all things considering. And there was an idea that when you see bands play live, sometimes all the things that aren't part of you disappear. So money, work, health, anxiety, sex, politics, everything disappears. The only thing that really exists is that feeling. And I had this sense when I was watching them on these tours, I was kind of like watching a synth pop version of AC/DC, in so much as they have hits, they play the hits, everybody knows they play the hits, and the hits are always in the same place, in the same set, every night. They always played exactly the same, like gospel. And by the way, not a criticism of AC/DC, they're incredible live. But it is if you see Depeche Mode as much as I've seen Depeche Mode, it does get a little predictable. Now, the tour was commemorated in the unsurprising and predictable live release, a concert film directed by Anton Corbijn called Spirits in the Forest. And it comes in two versions, Spirits in the Forest, on this 4-disc set, which features a huge fold-out thingy and a booklet and a whole bunch of other stuff. So this is the recording of the last live show the band played on the tour, the last live show Fletch played with the band. Although both nights were filmed and they changed 11 songs between night 1 and night 2, you only get night 2's set list on here. So you get a pretty faithful representation of the last show Depeche Mode played live with Fletch in the band. You don't get the songs that they played the night before, so you don't get So Much Love, you don't get Corrupt, you don't get Barrel of a Gun, for example. But what you do get is the hits heavy kind of 21 song set that the band played, starting with Going Backwards and ending with Just Can't Get Enough, alongside a version of I Want You Now, Heroes, and everything that goes with it. Spirits in the Forest as a film is terrible. Live Spirits, the concert version, wonderful. Spirits in the Forest as a film tries to recreate the world of 101, but to do so 30 years later. And it takes 6 people and their stories from various parts of the world and their connections to Depeche Mode, and tracks and records a semi-documentary as it kind of brings them into this one place in Berlin where they get to see their favourite band. Now, it fails, in my opinion, because there's an amazing story to be told about Depeche Mode, their fandom, the devotion of their fandom, and the meaning that the band have. And that story is told in the, I think it's Jonathan Della film, The Posters Came From the Walls, which is now available, I think, on Vimeo, which details what it was like to be a Depeche Mode fan behind the Iron Curtain during communists' rule, and the fact that there was this subversive band that nobody really knew a huge amount about, that somehow spoke to the huge disaffected youth of Russia in the 80s. This does not tell that story. The people that they choose, the stories that are told, are, in my opinion, unengaging and articulate, and they don't really tell the story of what Depeche Mode could mean to somebody, which is the nice way of saying, if I'd have known, I'd have entered the competition. If I'd have been in the film, I would have made the film better. But I didn't, and I didn't, and I didn't. So we have the film as it is, which only has 6 or 7 live tracks from Depeche in, and it's mostly about 50 minutes of footage, which to me doesn't tell the story that I would have hoped the film would have been able to tell, which is around the relationship that bands and fans have with each other and the meaning that a band has in fans' lives. Spirits in the Forest woefully fails to tell that story in a compelling way, and it becomes more a hagiography similar to the film Springsteen and I, which I do not like, which is people anecdoting about stuff that happened to them and not talking about how this band changed their life, but talking about how the band soundtracked various events which are very, very common in everybody's life. My life, like most people's lives, is probably not vastly different from everybody else's, and it's probably quite predictable and quite boring, and lots of stuff has happened in my life that has happened in lots of other people's lives, you know, divorces, deaths, births, weddings, children's bar mitzvahs, etc., all that type of stuff. Spirits in the Forest does not do the job of explaining why this band inspires devotion in people. It absolutely doesn't. So stick to the concert footage, which is far, far better. And that is why I tried to watch Spirits in the Forest earlier. I switched it off because I was bored, and instead I listened to the live soundtrack. So Live Spirits, absolutely great, and a fitting end to the band's existence with Fletch as an active living participant. But Spirits in the Forest is absolutely not up to the standards that I was expecting. 101 does a far better job of explaining or demonstrating how a fandom can interact with a band and vice versa. And Spirits tries to do the same thing 20 years later, and it fails, which is a great shame. That is Depeche Mode's Spirit album, and Spirits in the Forest and the live stuff that goes with it. I think the album overall is probably too political. Not maybe too political, it's very political. It's more political than any other Depeche Mode album. And so it may not, your mileage may vary when it comes to Spirits. But Live Spirits is a good live document. Spirit, I think, is a good Depeche Mode album, not a great one. It's not particularly well sequenced. I'd put some of the songs in a slightly different order. But overall, it is just another Depeche Mode album. And just another Depeche Mode album means that it is a heck of a lot better than some bands' entire careers all stuck together and their greatest hits. But there you have it. Next episode, when I talk about Depeche Mode, I will be talking about an album that didn't exist the last time I did a Depeche Mode episode, Memento Mori, which came out last week. And I'm going to try and do that one sooner rather than later, but I need a little bit longer to digest the songs and to understand them before I can talk about them. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. Stay beautiful. I will see you soon. Okay, bye.